83% of small businesses globally are in check-to-check survival. They are in a constant cash crisis. I don't believe it's that entrepreneurs are incapable of being profitable. I think it's the foundational formula. We are told that profit comes last. Sales minus expenses equals profit. What I teach in Profit First is I flip the formula. It's sales minus profit equals expenses. Take a percentage of that money every time, allocate it as profit. So profit is no longer an event as in an eventuality. Profit is now a habit. It's baked into every transaction.
The following is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that helps you get the job, manage the job, and get credit.
Hey, this is Gordon Henry at Winning on Main Street, and this week you get to meet Mike Michalowicz. By his 35th birthday, Mike Michalowicz had founded and sold 2 multi-million-dollar companies. Confident that he had the formula to success, he became an angel investor, and he proceeded to lose his entire fortune. Then he started all over again, driven to find better ways to grow healthy, strong companies. And among other innovative strategies, Mike authored a book, Profit First, created the Profit First formula, a way for businesses to ensure profitability from their very next deposit forward. And then Mike also created a book called The Pumpkin Plan, Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. He's very well known. Business Week deemed these entrepreneurs cult classics. He's now running his third multi-million-dollar venture. And Mike is also a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal and MSNBC's Your Business Makeover. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Gordon. It's a joy to be with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So, Mike, let's dive in. How did you make the leap originally to begin running these entrepreneurial businesses? How did you get started?
Oh, like for me, the start was right out of college. No entrepreneurial background. Like I didn't run like a newspaper route. I wasn't that kid at all. I thought I was going to get a good permanent job. That's what my parents told me would happen. Yeah. And I couldn't. I actually returned home after school and I worked at a local computer store. Well, after going out one night with a buddy that worked there for way too many drinks, this liquid courage kicked in. And I'm like, I can start my own business. I should be doing so. I'm doing all the work. So I had that retaliatory moment where the employee feels I'm doing everything and the owner just counts the money. So I started my business literally the next day, hungover, and realized, the owner's not counting money. They're sweating bullets back there. They're trying to build relationships and do outreach and so forth. And really was thrust into entrepreneurship. But I couldn't get a job again. I started a business that competed against my original employer. He said, F you, kid, good luck. And he didn't mean good luck. And I've been in business ever since.
And what were the two businesses where you made your first fortune?
First was I started a computer networking business.
Okay.
So I sold that to private equity, which actually, interestingly, just for me, they upsold it again just last week. We got involved in a roll-up and it's been a massive success for them. And it was a good success for me. My second business was in computer crime investigation. Right place, right time. We actually helped facilitate some of the Enron trial investigative work. And so that put us on the map. Robert Half International, they're a Fortune 500, saw us and bought us up within 2.5 years of our start. And it was a pretty amazing exit.
Wow. Fantastic. So you have these two early stage startups, super successful. You have the two exits, you make a bunch of money, and then you go into angel investing.
Right. And I'm a moron is what it boils down to. I was so full of myself, Gordon. I thought I knew everything. I had the Midas touch. I thought, two exits, and I wasn't even 35 yet. And this business, I said, well, I'm just going to start investing in businesses all over the place because I know what makes businesses successful. I invested in 10 startups. All of them collapsed. Not because they weren't good business ideas, because I had no idea what I was doing, honestly. It was all over the place. And I lost all of my wealth I made in the first two business exits. And it became this great wake-up call. I lost my house. I lost everything. And I'll never forget the turning moment. It was so bad. My daughter, when I told my kids we're losing our house, my daughter, who was 9, grabbed her piggy bank from her bedroom and she goes, Daddy, since you can't support us anymore, I'll be our provider. And I was so ashamed and embarrassed. And if I think about it, I'll start getting emotional. But it was a wake up call. And I also, By the way, it wasn't like the next morning I said, I'm going to fix this. I went through depression. I went through the whole thing. And I'm grateful for it. I think it was a form of divine intervention that I really didn't understand the core principles of business. I was lucky and fortunate, but I didn't understand what makes business tick. And that actually inspired me to start researching it. I created books. And honestly, all the books I've written and all the books I will write, I'm investigating something I really don't understand fully that I need to implement in my own businesses. And I own businesses today too. I own 3 businesses, but my approach to them is radically different than the younger me.
Right. So the experience you just described, the depression, the situation with your daughter, all of those issues led you to discover something, I guess, inspirational, breakthrough, which was your profit first formula. Is that right?
Yeah, that was one of the big breakthroughs. And I discovered a fascinating statistic. It was released by US Bank. SBA was involved. They identified of the 300 million small businesses in the world, and a small business defined by the SBA is a company that does $25 million in revenue or less. So for me, that's big business, but they consider it small. I'm absolutely a small business. 83% of small businesses globally are in check-to-check survival. They are in a constant cash crisis, which means check-to-check survival. And I'm like, how can that be? Because every entrepreneur I've ever met in my life said, I started my business for financial freedom, for personal freedom. But no one's achieving the 2 things we want: to do what we want when we want, to not worry about bills. The 2 things we want are the 2 things that don't happen. It makes no sense. And that's when I started looking at it and said, what's the underlying cause? And I'm vehement about this. I don't believe it's that entrepreneurs are incapable of being profitable. I think it's the foundational formula. We are told that profit comes last. Sales minus expense equals profit. But it's human nature, and it's logical, but it's human nature. When something comes last, means it's insignificant. If you love your family, you say, I put my family first. You don't say, I put my family last now. If health matters to you, I put my health first, not health last. And when something comes last, it's the manana syndrome. Most entrepreneurs don't worry about profit until the end of the year, tax time doesn't happen. They're like, oh, maybe next year. I pray the year after that. And it never manifests. What I teach in Profit First is I flip the formula. It's sales minus profit equals expenses. In practice, what I say is every time there's a deposit, take a percentage of that money every time, allocate it as profit. So profit is no longer an event as in an eventuality. Profit is now a habit. It's baked into every transaction.
Right. And, we were talking before the show that, if I took the profit out first, okay, and I then pay the expenses, okay, if there's still way too many expenses, I still have to pay them. It's not like I can ignore expenses I've incurred. Otherwise, I'll get sued or I'll go bankrupt or something,
right.
Bad will happen. So it's not just about, I take my money out first to, live my life, and then I pay my expenses. There's another piece of it, which is reducing the expenses, which you call the small plate. So maybe you can explain that.
Yeah. So the idea of Profit First, the foundational principles, when money comes in, say $1,000 of deposits, we historically say, well, I have $1,000 to spend. And that's absolutely not true. That $1,000 has multiple responsibilities. Profit is one. That's a reward to the shareholders. Owner's comp, which is different than profit. Owner's comp is a salary for the work you do within your business. If we had to replace you, well, we have to pay that person. Well, your company needs to pay you that because you are that person. We need to allocate money toward taxes. In fact, I'd say the biggest bill associated with the operation of a business that business owners are least prepared for is actually taxes. The business can, regardless of your formation, S Corp, C Corp, LLC, your business can pay your taxes. You just got to formulate it right. Sometimes it pays directly. Sometimes it does what's called a reimbursement distribution. And then there's money allocated to the operations of the business. So $1,000 comes in, you don't have necessarily $1,000 to spend. It may be $400 or $500 in the OpEx. Well, that's your wake-up call. Because up to this point, we've been spending $1,000. There's $1,000 of bills, and we just get by. And if you're experiencing that just get by, there's a behavioral reason behind it. It's called Parkinson's law. It basically is a theorem that as a supply increases, in this case, money, our consumption will automatically increase with it. It's just our behavioral response. So we just get by. But what happens with Profit First now is you see $500, I have $1,000 of bills. There is an indiscrepancy because we're reverse engineering the profit. If you want to have a profit, if you want to pay yourself, this is what you must run the business off of. So now the business speaks to you in that regard. And if you have bills piled up, you have a historical responsibility. That's something you committed to in the past. You must pay. But the question is, must you perpetuate it? And in many cases, you don't. I would say businesses have a 10 to 20% excess expenses that when we work with businesses, we cut them overnight and there's no negative consequence to the business. There is a certain point, though, you start cutting the muscle of the business by cutting costs. The bigger opportunity, we're talking about this off air too, is in margin. Most businesses undervalue themselves, and then they put a price out there that's representative of that devaluation. We need to dictate our true value, and we need to price accordingly. And by having appropriate margin and controlling costs and getting rid of inappropriate costs, that's where all that profit is represented. Great stuff, Mike. And we're going to just take a quick break, and we'll be back with more from Mike Michalowicz.
This episode of Winning on Main Street is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that includes everything small business owners need to meet their customers' expectations. Thryv's award-winning and fully mobile interface delivers technology previously reserved for big business to the fingertips of small business owners nationwide. Thryv's built specifically for small business, but there's nothing small about what it can do. Thryv handles your entire customer experience, helping business owners reach more customers, stay organized, get paid faster, and generate online reviews, all from a single device or screen. To learn more about Thryv, visit winningonmainstreet.com and click on Get a Demo. When it comes to software to run your business, there's no comparison. Check out Thryv today.
So you've been talking about this program, this Profit First program, for a while now. It's been out there. Has it impacted businesses? Do you find businesses are implementing it and it's really helped them succeed?
Yeah. So we have to do an estimate, but we believe it's about 600,000 businesses that have implemented Profit First.
Wow.
We have 620 active members that are accountants, bookkeepers, or coaches that are certified in this method. And they are directly teaching these businesses. Above that, those are some businesses that they read the book. Everything's in the book. You can do it solo. I consider it going to a gym. You can work out alone, or many people prefer to work with a trainer because of the knowledge they have and also the adherence to the system. But you can go solo. And so between what our coaches have done in serving companies and the readership we have, it's about 600,000 companies that have done it. And here's the interesting thing. We have thousands of case studies. Consistently, what we see in these case studies is the same thing, that the businesses that take their profit first actually grow faster than their contemporaries. And one of the big points of resistance is, well, I'm trying to grow my business. I can't take profit. That is not true. And when we have the data to back it now, in that when a business takes its profit and there's less money to spend, you actually have to become much more selective in how you spend. So owners are much more focused on, will this give me a return? Businesses that aren't taking their profit first, it's a little more haphazard. It's like, oh, everyone else is doing Facebook ads. We got to try that out. They're pot shots. Now we have kind of laser targeted use of expenses. And sure enough, these businesses benefit from that and grow faster.
I'm just thinking, does this apply to big businesses as well as entrepreneurial businesses? Should every business operate this way?
At a certain point, I don't think it applies anymore. We do have a couple public companies that are using it. And I can't share their name because they're public. And they have certain compliance rules like Sarbanes-Oxley and stuff like this that actually prohibits them from using Profit First in its original nature, original format. They have to modify it to comply with their reporting internally and so forth. But I'll give you an example of a couple of public companies, what they've done. They go to their department heads and they say, hey, we've got a project for $1 million or something, and you're the project lead on this $1 million project. Well, they used to say, here's your $1 million and you got to throw off at 20% profit. Now they take their profit first. They say, hey, an $800,000 project came in. So they take that 20% first, and you got to make 20% off it. And the project leads are. So now these projects that they get billed out at 800 are coming in at a cost of 600, and they're netting 4 as opposed to 2. So it still works. But the thing is, a company that goes into kind of the higher levels of growth have comptrollers, controllers, CFOs. Small businesses don't. And small businesses will say, I have a CFO. You don't have a CFO. You have a bookkeeper. But we like to throw that nice title out there. Right. If you're managing your business by looking at your bank account, you're still at the level that Profit First will serve you extraordinarily well. If you actually are doing highly sophisticated accounting, where you have comptrollers and controllers reporting in and you're managing the numbers through those books, then Profit First is of little value.
Okay. But most of the folks who are listening to this show probably are in that 1 to 25 million, or maybe even
that's the range. The biggest
and
companies that use it are maybe 50 million I've seen, but there's a couple of public companies, but that's an anomaly.
Yeah. Although I would say, since I'm somebody who's worked in mostly large companies during my life, I mean, they certainly pay their employees first. They don't wait to decide whether to pay employees to see if they made any money. I mean, so all those, everybody, including the CEO, gets a salary, and they probably set aside money for a bonus that's accrued, right? So essentially they've thought about that. And furthermore, I've never really been in a big professionally managed company that said at the end of the year, oh, did we make a profit or not? Or did we hit a margin or not? Or are we going to deliver results for our shareholders or not? No, they ran the business to hit whatever EBITDA margin they needed to hit.
Exactly. And the other interesting thing about large companies, public companies specifically, is they do distributions to the shareholders, usually quarterly. And oh, that's the golden rule. Large corporations can only achieve that size with absolute fiscal discipline. They have to know the numbers inside and out. You can't pay thousands of employees every week or two without fiscal discipline. And I was like, oh, I looked at the lessons that they kind of teach, and I was like, oh, this translates to small business. I believe small business needs to have that discipline of doing the quarterly profit distribution. Reward the shareholder because it keeps the shareholder engaged. And it assures financial acuity because the shareholder's like, when's the next quarter coming? So that's what small businesses do. Every quarter, as that profit accumulates, distribute to shareholders. In some small businesses, you are the only shareholder. It's a glorious day. Distribute to the shareholders quarterly.
Right. I don't want to leave this topic without getting to the food analogy, because we all eat, and I think it's a really interesting analogy how this profit first idea kind of ties into the food we consume. Can you mention it briefly, the small plates idea?
Yeah. So what's interesting is plates. I showed you over the last 300 years, plates have doubled in size, and so have waistlines. And so there's a link between portions served compared to the effect it has on us. And I was watching a fitness instructor, and they said, it's real simple. If you want to control your weight, actually get smaller plates at your house. I ran a test with my own house. I got 2 teenage boys, at least at the time they were teenagers. And I will tell you, the food consumption from teenage boys is off the charts. Like, we're going through a box of cereal every 2 minutes. Like, just roll the Cheerios trucks to our house.
Right.
So what I did was I started getting smaller bowls. Now, I didn't take the bowl and cut it in half. Yeah. I got a slightly smaller bowl, and then I replaced it like a month later, got slightly smaller ones. And those monsters never noticed.
Right.
All they did, they keep doing the same behavior, fill Cheerios, crap all over the kitchen, my wife getting upset. And then they would, I don't even speak English. I was like, rah, rah. But the food consumption was reduced significantly by reducing the bowls, because their mindset is fill up the bowl and eat it. Smaller bowl, they didn't notice. But it's not unique to them. That's how all humanity behaves. The serving put in front of us is what we consume. So it's true for food. It's true for money. It's true for time. There's research on time. The more time we're given to do something, the longer it takes. That's why we need to control how much money is in front of us and how much food's in front of us.
There's that old saying, if you need something to get done, give it to a busy person, right? Because they're very efficient with their time. Yeah,
it's true.
Exactly. Yeah. You also wrote a book called The Pumpkin Plan. Can you tell us briefly about the Pumpkin Plan? Is that something different than Profit First?
Totally. Yeah. So I've written now 7 books, and they're all different aspects. What I studied of small business, I studied in the Pumpkin Plan was what facilitates organic, healthy growth in a business. And I usually use a technique called biomimicry. Basically, take something from Mother Nature, see if it translates. Well, I saw it when it comes to, of all things, growing pumpkins, but particularly colossal pumpkins, that farmers leverage nature's behavioral patterns and cause this explosive growth. So I translated pumpkin growing into business growth. One of the big takeaways is they will match the seed to the soil. You can grow a colossal pumpkin in northern Canada and in southern Mexico and everywhere in between, but you need to have the soil that matches the soil content and the climate. Well, in our businesses, we can do the same alignment. We really have to understand the community that we're serving before we kind of put that seed in. And this isn't pivoting, by the way. I'm not saying adjust to what customers want. It's more like aligning. Understand what the essence of your company is, your capabilities, and what you desire to do, and find the community that resonates with. And that's an alignment, and you'll have explosive growth. And there's other strategies like that.
Mike, you've helped, I think you said 600,000 businesses, or 600,000 have implemented your plan in some way. I know you do coaching and you help businesses kind of individually. I want to give you a chance to say, how do you do that? You have a business, and how do people find you? How do listeners find you?
Oh, thanks, Gordon. Yeah. So I personally don't do any coaching anymore.
Okay.
The rare case, sometimes someone like throws massively stupid money at me. I'm like, well, I think this is stupid, but I'd be stupid not to take it. So let's meet. But I have companies behind every one of my books. So we have a profit first professionals organization. We have pumpkin plan strategists. We have Clockwork, my book on efficiency. We have a place called Run Like Clockwork. The starting hub, I guess, is my website. And I'll give you a shortcut to get there because no one can spell my name, Michalowicz. Yeah. It's Mike Motorbike. It's a nickname from high school. MikeMotorbike.com, rhymes. All my books are there. Free chapter downloads. I have a podcast, all that stuff. And hopefully it'll give you some insights on getting your business to the next level you want. And then if the book serves you, maybe you even want to investigate the companies behind it that support it. MikeMotorbike.com.
Yeah, super helpful. Thanks. And in the last minutes we have, I know we're just about out of time. I wanted to ask you, we're coming out of COVID now. It's, thankfully, spring of 2021, things seem to be looking up. What's your sense of businesses, small businesses, in terms of where they are coming out of COVID? Are they in good shape going forward? Are you worried? What's your sense of the market right now?
Yeah, I think we're undergoing what I call the great reinvention. So 2008 was the great recession. I think it's a great reinvention. And I think customer expectations have forever shifted. I know mine have. I like curbside pickup at the liquor store, for example. And I think some businesses aren't listening and they're trying to go back to the way things operated. And I think they're going to get their butts handed to them. But other businesses are reaching out to the customers and saying, how can we serve you now? And I think that's our opportunity. Start surveying your customers. And it can be one-on-one, it can be through group surveys, but ask them, how can we serve you now, and adjust accordingly? Because if you align to customers' expectations, you'll do very well. If you reinvent, I think in this market, we're going to see some names we never heard of before in the next year or two skyrocket to the top because they're the ones listening.
Yeah, I can't help but just mention our company, Thryv. We make a software platform for small businesses, and it helps them basically manage their business through a software platform. So taking appointments virtually through the platform. That's awesome. So you don't need to get a phone call. You don't need to get it could be an email, it could be a text, or they can go online and literally book an appointment through your calendar. The customer gets reminders. So if it's a service business, they get a reminder about the booking. Don't forget we're coming to your house to fix the lighting tomorrow at 2:00. And so it prevents no-shows, prevents wasted time in traffic, things like that. And then electronic payments, electronic invoices, electronic estimates. And the point of this, and tying back to what you just said, is that consumer patterns have changed dramatically. Just like the curbside pickup, everybody's got a smartphone. Everybody wants to be able to pay and do things through their smartphone. Nobody wants to have as much friction in the day-to-day experience with businesses. And if you have a software platform that allows you to do that, you can make your customers a lot happier, engender a lot more loyalty, and save time for yourself, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love it.
I agree. I think we've all gotten used to the way Amazon does business, Uber does business, even the airlines now do business. You don't have a paper ticket, you just swipe, walk through, get on the plane. Those are the kinds of changes that small businesses have to compete with, right?
That's our new expectation. Yeah, we want friction-free experience for sure.
Right. Well, Mike, thanks so much for stopping by. I know you got to run, but this has been great. And to those of you who are listening, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe and tell a friend or colleague to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. Until next time, make it a great week.